Yes, my girl joining me today. Ooh, prepare to be inspired is Rohene Bouajram. She is an award-winning educator. She's a leadership coach. She's a podcast host. What is she not? It's really the question I should be asking. But what we will be talking about is how to lead with impact. Get the best out of your 9 to 5, basically. Lead with impact before you quit. So before we get into it, I must give Roheen a moment to shine. Tell us more about yourself, anything you'd like us to know. And thank you so much for being here with me today. Take it away, my girl.
Oh, CJ, thank you so much for first of all for inviting me onto such an incredible podcast that you've created that I know for many of us who are listeners and fangirl right here, it's a place for us to see ourselves and to be able to hear the conversations and some of the fears and also the dreams that others are thinking of. And so I come here grounded in first acknowledging that I am joining from the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and also Squamish nations, otherwise known as Vancouver, British Columbia. And so I ground that my feet are on a land that has been stolen, that has had a history of violence, and also a land that, for many of us as uninvited guests and settlers, myself being one of them, has been a land that has also allowed me to be more free. And I say more free with intentionality. But before I can tell you what that means, I want to take you back. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I grew up in a small town called Marandera and then moved eventually to the biggest city, Harare. And what people don't know about my story is that my parents made a significant sacrifice when I was 3 years old to leave me with my grandparents while they went to work and went to do sort of bigger things that could provide for their family. And so from 3 until 7, I stayed with my grandparents as well as my older sister and probably had to start to figure out life a lot quicker. Now, this, I would say, momentum of figuring out life a lot quicker has probably come up multiple times in my lifetime. It came up when I moved to Canada when I was 17 years old. And like any immigrant in a new and unfamiliar place, trying to figure out language, culture, how to fit in, belonging, all I had to figure out at that moment in time was how do I figure out life quicker? Which meant sometimes adapting, leaving behind the things that I knew and leaving behind the familiarity. And sadly, that figuring out life quicker continued into my career, where I was in higher education for over 20 years, climbing up the ladder, becoming a leader at the age of 19 years of age, and finding myself continuously hitting glass ceilings and concrete ceilings, even though my competence, even though the work I was producing was phenomenal. And so I come to probably the last part that I wanted to share, and that is I've finally hit a crossroad in my career and a crossroad in my life. And call it perimenopause, call it hitting 40s, call it any of the different milestones that I think we as women end up coming to. I've decided to create a different definition of freedom. Not one that was based on necessarily coming here as an uninvited guest on a land that is not mine, but a land that I'm grateful to be on, but rather to come up with a definition of how do I define freedom in terms of my time. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that definition of freedom and time, because the reality is, as women of color, and particularly as Black women, we don't exist to be on this world to give and give and give.
Yeah.
And so there's a level for me of freedom that is, how do I give to myself? And that for me has been the most powerful shift in paradigm in how I see myself and how I want to live the rest of my life. So that's a tad bit about me.
That was a beautiful, introduction. I knew that you would do an incredible job. You've already said some things that I'm sure has sparked the audience's interest just from your experience to arriving to Canada to and entering the professional world to where you are now. You talked about the glass ceiling, you talked about concrete ceilings, you're just the opportunities that just were not made available to you, or the ones that you could see the opportunity was there and you didn't have the same kind of access to it. But just from the title, that how I introduced you, you are in a really good place. I know it took a lot of work to get to where you are right now, but you are navigating both sides of the coin, if you will, the 9 to 5 professional, as well as being a very successful side hustler. And of course, we're going to talk more about that, about leading with impact, about what a woman who wants to get to where you are, she's already inspired in the 3 minutes into you talking, what you've said. What is your one, like, how do I put this that would really kind of make it juicy? What has been your biggest challenge that you had to overcome? Something that you hear a lot of women probably say, but they feel so isolated in their experience. They don't realize that there are many, many more out there who are going through that same thing. Do you have that kind of story or experience that you are comfortable sharing? And how did you work through and get over that hurdle?
Oh, I, I love this question, CJ, because I'm gonna really lay on some serious vulnerability
Mm,
and honesty, and I'm saying
mhm,
this
mhm,
because I think many of us need to take the risk in telling our truths because of that very challenge that you name, which is that if we're sitting here experiencing this challenge and we don't talk about it with others, we start to believe that it's really just it's us, and then that
mm,
moves us into that unfortunate space of saying, well, if it's just me, then there must be something wrong with me. And so my challenge was I followed the script. I really did. Particularly in my sector, as the successful kind of milestones and stepping stones is get the degree, got it. And I don't just get one degree. I got my bachelor's degree. I got my master's. I got an incredible certificate. I'm doing my doctorate right now. I studied in not just one country, Canada, but I studied in China, in Finland, in Colombia. And so I brought this global intercultural perspective to everything that I was doing, on top of being an immigrant and bringing in the layers of culture, spirituality, gender, racial, all of these lenses that I think allow us to really see things from a place of duplicity and plurality. So I got the degrees, I got the credentials. And then I know that another success metric that many of us in our sectors are, well, then get the experience, get tons of experience. And I think often as women of color, if you look to even the literature and the books that are written for us to succeed into leadership and management and growth, the principles that govern some of those things are things like you got to work twice as hard. So I did it. I'm like, okay, got it. I'll work extra hours. I'll work on the evenings. I'll work on the weekends. Don't
mm,
say no, right? Because if you say no, then that's going to be given to somebody else. Okay, so I said yes.
mhm,
Now that yes it ended up with a bit of burnout cycles, but I was like, but that's okay because it's going to be worth it. I'm going to be expanding my experience. So I took on the projects. I took on things that were above my pay grade. I went and I probably managed up more than I should have, but that's okay because earn the experience. And then the third thing was believe that somebody will see your potential, right? Because if you got the credentials, you got the experience, you're pretty much a shoo-in for promotions and for senior leadership roles. So I was like, okay, someone will see my potential. And I can tell you that people saw the potential. That was not the issue. What the issue was that continuously, even when I asked and applied for jobs, I was often told it's just not the right time right now. Not the right time. So I was like, okay. I put in requests saying I was now doing way more scope and had much more governance of areas that when I look at others, they're compensated at a higher compensation than I am. So could we perhaps consider reclassification of my roles? And I did this multiple times throughout my career. And I would be supported and we would go through the process and I would be waiting patiently 1 year, 2 years. And then timing. Sorry, it's just right now.
Yeah.
They're not prioritizing these types of requests. So it's just not the right time right
Yeah.
now. But let me tell you what the even more, I would say, insidious and also beautiful challenge for me was the realization that, wait a minute, whose timeline am I on? Whose timeline?
Exactly.
Because if I'm waiting for the system to recognize that this is the time for Rohene to,
Yep.
advance, to get to the place where perhaps we can finally match her competence, I would be waiting because the message was clear, just not the right time. So I started to redefine, and that's why I said freedom for me is redefining time. And that was the challenge, was how do I start to decide for myself that success is about my timeline? And it took me 3 burnout cycles. Many people who love me to say to me, Rohene, you've done incredible things, but you've done enough. Like, draw the line and now choose what it is that you want to do. And let that bring you the joy. Let that fuel you rather than extract and drain you. And once I started to do that, CJ, once I started to actually be in a space of, what do I want? Where do I want to give? Who do I want to be around? All of a sudden, my energy and my aura and my soul and my vibration just started to increase. And that's where my energy lies in my side hustle. That's where I am now seeing the resonance of connection, but also of people saying, thank you. Thank you for what you're offering. And I don't know why, but every single time I get surprised because I'm like, really? Was that good? Are you sure this was okay? And they're like, yeah. And so to be validated and to be seen, that's the bare minimum any of us should be asking for. And yet for some reason, in some systems, in some places, even that bare minimum can't be met. I think of the person who's hearing and listening to this, as we often are in side hustles, we're often asking the question, like, can I sustain this? Can I continue doing this? Is this going anywhere? Are we actually moving in this direction? Don't let this challenge weigh you down. Rather, reframe the challenge, because once you reframe it, I think you'll have a very different perspective that will give to you rather than you constantly giving out. We deserve to have reciprocity. We deserve to have our energy fueled rather than drained. And we certainly deserve to have a life that is not about how good we perform, what metrics we try to aspire to that were never designed for us, and to ultimately decide for ourselves, who do we want to be?
I don't even know. Like, that was so powerful. And as you were sharing, I also, it's so much sounded so familiar. You know what I mean? With just checking off, doing the things. I got the degree. I got the different types of training, and I did this and I did that. And I'm trying to get the recognition. It could be a cultural thing too, where like we are just conditioned to and as immigrants, and we have to show up and we have to work. And of course, women of color, Black women, work twice as hard to get half of the recognition in this. And you did talk about burnout cycles. And you said it took 3 burnout cycles to get to the point of like making this decision for yourself, to show up for yourself professionally, like on both sides, and then ultimately in your side hustle. Talk to me about a burnout cycle. When did you recognize it? How long did it last? How did you get out of it? Because I know for an absolute fact, the women tuned in are high achieving women who want to do the things, who want to have all the things, and they're probably on the verge of some type of burnout because she's trying to do all the things and trying to do all the work and trying to be all these different places or perform all these different roles. How did you recognize it for yourself?
To my sister who is in that stage, just know from CJ and I, we're sending you love, because it's a hard place to be when you know that you're capable of so much more. You've built an incredible threshold and capacity of doing so much more. So for your body to be in a different place of what feels like betrayal, you're like, come on, like we know how to do this. It can be really painful. And so I just want to acknowledge that, because now that I'm out of the cycle, I'm going through my healing journey. I always think of what would I have wanted to hear if I was in that place that would have made me shift the next step or the next decision, right? Because somebody can say to you, just stop, just say no, set boundaries, right? Which are the things that people will often tell us. And a part of me, even just like feeling just even what's happening in my body, in my chest right now, I'm like, yes, I know I should be doing it, but it feels like you're being suffocated. It's like, how do you do this? I want to talk about my 3rd burnout cycle, because I think it's the most, for me, eye-opening one. So I was experiencing all the symptoms that I had experienced the 2nd and the 1st burnout cycle. There was, for me, almost this place of familiarity of, oh, here it comes again. Wait a minute, why is this happening? So the symptoms of irritability, brain fog, insomnia, I was just going, that I can now look back and say, wait a minute, like, how many times did I actually eat? How many times did I sit and actually rest? And I could probably count on less than both hands the number of fingers of how I could say I did that well and in a healthy manner. And so I was just going. And many times I did ask for help.
Okay.
I did ask for more resources. I did ask for more support. Often the response was, okay, we'll look into it. But that was not done fast enough, because the things kept piling up. Projects, deadlines, requests still needed to be met. What I did, which is the most ironic and contradictory thing that I could have ever done, but now I look back and I giggle and I laugh at myself, because I'm like, I know I needed to do that. Picture this. I'm in the thick of burnout. And CJ, I decide to take a course on burnout. And it's ironic because who does that? Me. But what it did for me is it helped me intellectualize, because for me, that's what I needed to understand was, what is the intellectual foundation of burnout? Like, how do we actually, what do we call it? What are the symptoms? How do we know it's happening? These were all of the questions. And I can't tell you how much by the 3rd week, I'm sitting there in this course, and I then just say vulnerably to everybody, I think I'm burning out. And the instructor's like, yeah, we know. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, but that's why people take this course. And that's the beauty of the offer that he's given, is he's obviously attracted people enough to say, I'm curious about this. Why do I say that is an important part? Is because each of us come to that realization of burnout in different ways. Some of us, it will be a loved one who notices something and will say, hey, you're not yourself lately. And that will be the shift that you need to make, because You have a compassionate witness who's given that to you as feedback. Others, like myself, it takes a little bit more than that. I had people who were saying, Rohini, I'm just checking in. How are you doing? And I'm like, I'm great. I'm fine. And so when I did finally
Yeah.
take this course, and then I remember a few weeks later going to my doctor and saying, okay, here are the things that are going on. And my doctor even saying, yes, I know. So what are you going to do differently this time? And so this for me was a major wake up call. I needed to do something different. And for those of you who are listening, your next set of decisions that you make, choices that you make are going to be different. For me, it required a medical leave, which for a lot of women, and particularly women of color, we
Yeah.
often get the message, if you take a medical leave, that's career suicide. And that's why I never took a leave after my first burnout cycle, after my second burnout cycle, because I figured that I could figure it out. I can figure out life quickly. Remember, that's what I always knew. And then I realized, what if I don't figure out life quickly? What about if I just rest? What if I just slow down? What if I just give my nervous system a reset, time to heal? And during that medical leave, I discovered many things that could help me heal. I discovered things like neurofeedback, obviously therapy, which I'd already been doing, but really now embracing a different way of how can I be different in this world. And then I took an acupuncture and chiro, massage therapy. I went swimming almost every week, being in water, cleansing. And there were a number of other things, journal, writing, connecting back in with my spirituality and the wisdom that I had from Zimbabwe that I knew was ancestral and ancient and powerful. And then at the end of my leave, when I was now ready to go back, I came back a reinvented and transformed woman, a different leader and a different person altogether.
Wow.
Those around me, yes, needed to adapt to who I was. My focus was, how do I stay this new person that I have committed to being while honoring the death of an old version of me that was ready to go? In just the last year, so this is very recent, still raw, it's still fresh, and it's still evolving into the person that I am becoming right now.
Thank you, first of all, I knew you would be, but thank you for your transparency. I believe in having very honest conversations about these things because this is what women want to hear. They want to hear that because I'm sure they're nodding and saying, yes, I've felt this, or I've been there, I've done that. And I think I'm experiencing burnout right now, or I might have been burnout 6 months ago. And this is what I did to come back from it. But to know that the experience, they're not isolated in that experience. And I love when you said that success is about time, and that you were reclaiming your time, that you made a choice, that you chose. It took 3 burnout cycles as you described them, but you made a choice. You made a decision for yourself. You had to get to that point, but then you realized you had to do for you. And I think that is the biggest message that we can take away from this conversation. And yes, it might sound cliche and redundant, and everybody says, choose you. But life is a series of choices. And usually as women, we don't choose ourselves first. We don't put ourselves first. We can feel selfish. We can feel guilty. We've been conditioned to feel guilty if we're doing something for ourselves. But if you want to lead with impact, if you want to define your success on your time, on your schedule, not someone else's success, not what someone else is expecting from you based on a job description, it does mean making that decision. It does mean it's not easy at all. Hard. And we are not here to tell you, girl, what are you doing? Like, just choose yourself. It'll be so good. And then you listen to like a couple like really inspirational podcast episodes, or you read a quote on Instagram or social media. I'm like, all right, I'm good now. That's not what it is. It is a journey. There will be trials, there'll be obstacles, you'll find a flow, and then all of a sudden you'll hit a wall and things will fall apart. You have to start all over again. But what we're saying is
Mm-hmm.
to be able to define who you are or who you are meant to be. It comes back to you. So leading with
Mm-hmm.
impact. And as a leadership
Mm-hmm.
coach, I love having these conversations with leadership coaches and getting the different takes on how you guide your clients through becoming or being better leaders. What is something that she needs to recognize within herself to know that the leader that she's meant to be is in there? And it just means her making a decision to step into that role so she can take the next step towards in the direction of quitting or starting the side hustle, running and growing the side hustle because many do feel like they're not meant to lead or they're not leaders or because they are in roles where they haven't been given that title, if you will. So to give herself that title now might seem, again, there might be some insecurity attached to that. So what does she need to recognize in herself to know that she can lead with impact?
The first one, I love that you've captured that it starts with us first. So I'm gonna kind of continue with that thread. I'm gonna offer 3 strategies. So the first one is starting with self. Is your rituals are really important. So your morning routine is how you set up your day, how you want to be able to carry your energy for the remainder of the day, which means during that morning, if you're just scrolling on TikTok, hoping that, that you're going to receive energy from there, that's probably not going to be the case. So setting aside time in the morning to really write out the goals you want to achieve that day, maybe doing a bit of journal writing, maybe even taking time to incorporate yoga, exercise. Because if we don't commit to our health and well-being in that morning state, chances are we're not going to be able to sustain our energy for the remainder of the day. And each of us will have different ways of approaching this. Some of us, we might not find that the morning's the right time. Maybe it's later in the day or in the evening, but find a way to get yourself at a place where you're ready to be in flow. My next strategy is all about flow. We're giving yes to a job, but we're also receiving from the job. I would highly recommend, I have on my website a free guide of how you can track your impact. And I offer you some prompts and some questions that you can start to actually articulate how you're making a difference. Often when we're working in systems, and this includes our side hustle, right? Because eventually you might apply for grants or you'll need to put forward proposals. We have to often put forward ideas that are going to be seen as successful in the systems that we're operating. And how we do that is often defined by quantifiable metrics, right? How good are you? How many people are going to be involved in this? Or what's the success rate of X product? Or what's the inventory that you're going to be able to match and meet in terms of demand and everything else in between? And the thing is that often many of us are attracted to businesses that want to uplift and support our communities. But when we're trying to uplift and support our communities, there's things like rebuilding trust. There's things like holding space for some of the violence and the rupture that has occurred, which means we're not going to see success instantaneously. Success is going to be at a progress and an evolution and a pace of trust, which isn't always going to match what the system is looking for. So how do we start to incorporate storytelling? How do we start to incorporate qualitative data that starts to get people shifting away from their minds and into their hearts? And those are some of the strategies that we can start to incorporate in our business when we start to think about, how am I leading with impact? How am I defining success differently so that others see how I'm defining success differently as well? And then the last strategy that I'll offer, and this is to my sisters who are like me, who are doing a 9 to 5 and sometimes what feels like a 5 to 9. all at the same time. I am going to really strongly invite you, as you think about leading with impact, is to do a beautiful spring clean every quarter of the things that you don't need to be touching. And this includes your 9 to 5. That committee that you continuously kept keeping asked to be on just because they need somebody to bring diverse perspectives, ask yourself, do you really need to be there? That project that you're continuously finding your name somehow attached to it, does your name really need to be there? Are you receiving any of the fuel and the fire and the recognition and the energy from it? Because if the answer is no, 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 then don't put your name on it. Don't be involved in it. So Marie Kondo, what it is that we are working on, and send it off with love if we let it go. Give it off to somebody else. Because sometimes leading with impact means carefully selecting the things that you need, should, can, want to be a part of. And that involves also a side hustle. There are times when I believe when we're especially in the beginning of building a business, we want to say yes to everything. And it's okay in the beginning, but we can't sustain that yes for everything. So if you're doing that spring clean and you're doing it every quarter, you'll start to get into a rhythm of saying, okay, this meets my goals. This helps me be able to move forward. And this doesn't. So I'm going to send it off with love. Thank you for the time that it's spent in my life. And I'm ready to let it go. Because when we lead with impact, we start to create clarity in where we want to be involved. And that's why I offer that framework and that toolkit that you can access and download for free from my website. We also start to see ourselves in a different way when we start to say no, because there will be inevitably people who will say to us, oh yeah, sure. And then we'll be surprised because nobody's actually missing us. And so why would we be holding ourselves to something that we could have said no to a long time ago? Or genuinely people will say, oh my gosh, no, we can't do this without you. What can we do to make this work? And then you're in a very different position of power. And then lastly, when it comes to starting to really create those cleanse rituals and that beautiful morning routine, you will find yourself in a flow state majority of your life. And that's where the magic truly happens. Each and every one of us can probably pull together a time when you know that you're in flow, where time just disappears and you're just like, I can't believe I just spent 3 hours doing that. And it was so much fun. That's how we can live. But it does require us to make those choices, to set that environment for ourselves, and to be comfortable and confident to say, that's not for me, but this is. That's what I would offer to you.
Okay, you know what? I love that you mentioned the free guide. Thank you for that share. And I love me a good segue. Everybody's just like, oh God, so you're just going to mention segue. I love a good segue. Because people want more from you. People want to learn from you. They want to connect with you. But what do you have coming up? What's going on in your world that people need to know about?
Well, my sister, CJ, like you, I am also a podcast host of a podcast that I am absolutely just connected to, and it's called Unspeakable Leadership, and it explores the leadership of women of color. What I would love for anyone who's listening, who's interested, please check out my podcast. I will be dropping season 4, and season 4 is going to be a little bit fiery and spicy. I am so excited. And so if you are interested, and if some of the stuff that I have shared has resonated or sparked anything in you, please do check out Unspeakable Leadership, because you will find more of these conversations where myself and my guests are really peeling back the illusions that we've been fed and redefining and reframing how we want to bring that into our leadership and our life. And I hope that this can also have the ripple effect for many of those who are listening and watching on either any podcasting platform or on YouTube as well.
Yes, you definitely want to check out Rohine's podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, I know you did. Like, imagine her own podcast where she just leaves you feeling so inspired and ignited, and she really just draws you right in. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rohene, and speaking so candidly about things that we need to talk more about. But before I let you go, I need to ask you for a nugget for our audience. What do you want to leave the audience with today?
Oh gosh, I mean, so much we've already chatted, but I can't help but draw from what I keep little mementos and reminders on my desk. And so I'm going to share this one. And this is a little rock that I have here that I got from one of my best friends a few years ago. And it says, "Be your true self." And I have this rock that sits on my desk as just a reminder that the best thing that we can do for anyone, but most importantly ourselves, is just be ourselves. And I'm not talking about sometimes the hype and how much like the word authenticity has been utilized. I'm talking about the real sort of raw self where you are so you that even you surprise yourself. And that's how I like to show up. I never used to show up that way before, but that's where I'm at now. And I truly believe if the more of us are showing up as our true selves, it will not only give, hopefully, the wisdom and the permission for others to do the same, but it will show that all of those illusions that many of us have been told or conditioned to believe are good for us, for our safety, for our benefit, for our success, is just absolute nonsense. And so let's create our own reality, being just us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. This is so good. I'm so sorry that I have to say goodbye, but we're going to keep talking. But I guess we'll wrap up the episode. This has been incredible. Thank you very much. I can't wait to see what else you do. And I'm so glad that we are connected and that we will continue to champion each other no matter what direction you go in, how successful and you will just continue to succeed because you deserve all of the good things. Thank you so much for being here with me, inspiring me as well as my audience today, Rohene.
And thank you so much, CJ, for inviting me, for allowing me to be in your space. And hell yeah, we are going to be in each other's lives in all successes and in all possibilities. And thank you. Thank you for being the incredible, amazing person that you are. Because as somebody who's been in multiple spaces with you, CJ, you just, brilliance shines from you, including warmth and honesty. And so thank you, because it is rare to sometimes be in spaces with women who aren't always trying to size you up. And you don't do that. If anything, you're like, what size are you? Because let's be in each other's spaces and let's size each other up in other ways. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being the person that you are and for being in my sister circle, because that is, I feel, the most powerful thing that we can create for each other.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna make me cry. I'm gonna stop now. Thank you so much, Rohene.